Welcome back to Draft Nights. Here we are about to go over all of the first round selections by AFC teams. Sam, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I heard that apparently I'm frozen on your computer. I'm not frozen in real life, for those wondering. I'm doing fantastic, and I'm excited to get into this part two because we got a couple of interesting picks to go over that I'm
Oh,
looking
yeah.
to get your analysis on.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one. And we're going to start off right off the bat of a player who made some headlines on social media. It was Caleb Lomu, the offensive tackle out of Utah. 6'6", 313, made not some positive headlines after his draft day video came out where he was dancing quite interestingly, and then a lot of fans happen to say, "Oh, I can't wait to post this when Drake May gets sacked like 13 times." But he's a baller. I just want to get your take right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, an interesting choice there, but it doesn't really take away from his talent at all. You look at a guy like this; he's really solid on the ball. He's really just a guy that you want for your QB. He's a big dude, like you said,
Hmm.
6'6", 313. And he's just a solid guy to have on your lineup. The Patriots need an O line right now. And
Hmm.
so I think this is a great pick for them. It's also tough because they had such a low pick. I think they really made the most of what they could do. And, you can say as much as you want about the off the field problems, but on the field, this guy is able to support a QB, and that's what you need from your tackle.
Yeah, I mean, of course, when we say off the field issues, like compared to other players, just a
It's
weird
nothing.
dance
It's
is
nothing.
is
Yeah.
nothing. But as for his actual stats, so last season he had an 82.1 block rating on PFF, a 62 run block rating, which we'll get into, and an overall rating of 68.4 with 0 sacks allowed. Now, the numbers don't immediately pop out, especially considering the numbers that you're going to hear about the future offensive tackles and offensive linemen throughout the draft, but he was taken at pick 28, and he seems kind of like the correction to Will Campbell. Now, Will Campbell is a good player. Did he have his struggles? Yes, but he is good. But his big thing that everyone likes to mention was his very small arms. He's a little bit on the undersize when it comes to height, and he got bullied a lot in the playoffs. So seeing Lomu coming in, a guy who's 6'6" and has very long arms, it seems like the Patriots are trying to correct or maybe cover up some of Will Campbell's faults.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I'm glad that we brought the long arms back into the conversation and pick one. That makes me really happy.
Yeah.
But no, I would say that Lomu is really thrives when protecting the pass offense. Where I'm interested to see how much he can grow is protecting that rush.
Hmm.
Now, obviously, the Patriots still had a fantastic rushing game last season. They made it to the Super Bowl, so it's not like they're really out here struggling. They were sixth in rushing yards. But that being said, it's going to be interesting if he really is replacing Campbell to see how he can come back and really take them that extra step, give them that extra bump in that rushing offense to see if
Hmm.
they can really find a way to secure such a solid offense. We know that Drake May's already got the talent, so let's see if the Patriots can get it going on both sides.
Hmm. Campbell's like main strength coming out of college was how versatile and how quick he was, while also having really good anchor. And it kind of seems like Lomu has those same skills. He's not a particularly great run blocker. Like he doesn't have the long speed that Campbell does. It seems like maybe bringing Lomu, they want to kick Campbell inside to guard, though Campbell says otherwise. Maybe they want to put Lomu at right tackle. It's a little bit confusing. It's going to be interesting to see how the Patriots O line plays out. But what's most important is last season in the playoffs, they allowed the most sacks by nearly double. They had 21 sacks allowed in the
Mm-hmm.
playoffs, which absolutely killed them in the Super Bowl. And they had the ninth most in the regular season at 48. So they really clearly needed help for that O line to defend Drake May. And, I could see this pick really helping to solidify the Patriots as a long-term contender rather than a one-season wonder.
Yeah, I
Now
would
moving
totally
on.
agree with that. Real quick, just adding on to
Okay,
it, I
yeah.
would say this is about as clean of a pick as you can get, especially at
Mhm.
28. He's going to be a guy that's everything is showing that he's going to be reliable, and that's exactly what the Patriots need right now. With such a young team, you need people that are reliable, and if they can get that going, they're going to be good for a really long time.
Yeah, high floor, low ceiling type of pick.
Exactly.
Next, the Bills did not have a first round pick, so we're going to move on. So the Dolphins had two first round picks, and both of them, I'm going to be real before we start, I didn't like either one of them. I was not a fan. The first
Fair.
one at pick 12 was Caden Proctor, the offensive tackle out of Alabama. Yes, it's another offensive tackle. 6'6", 352 pounds. And so Proctor made his name kind of early, made a lot of headlines for negative reasons. He struggled to control his weight, got over 400 pounds at some points during his sophomore and freshman season. He seemed to have a lot of motivation concerns when it came to his motivation to go to the gym to improve his game. But outside of those, there is a clear upside to his ceiling. Like there is a clear avenue to him being a NFL like all pro guard tackle. For one, very tall, 6'6", great arm length. Per we mentioned before, he's fast for how big he is. He's not fast for a tackle, but he's fast for a 352-pound tackle. And I mean, of course, super strong, can just absorb contact, absorb rushes, is really good at climbing to the next level, flattens defenders in the run game. There is an avenue to seeing Proctor being a really good tackle in the NFL, but I think there are concerns. I want to get your take first.
Yeah, so I mean, last week we talked a lot about how Jeremiah Love was the right player but the wrong pick. And
Mm-hmm.
in this specific situation, I would say it's the exact opposite. I would say as a player, I don't love Proctor, but as a pick and going into this offensive scheme, I totally understand it. It's clear the Dolphins are doing a long rebuild of their offensive line. It's something that they've been working on and they're going to need to keep working on. And so to that end, I think that he was a really smart pick and one that made a lot of sense. So
Mm-hmm.
I know that you aren't really a fan of it, but while I can see, the player being a little bit questionable, I honestly would have even gone for like Lomu at that point. That might have been a little high to draft him, but same type of idea, a player that has a lot more reliability that you can count on a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more. I totally respect this pick, and I totally understand the strategy that Miami was going for with it. And so because of that, I ended up really respecting this pick.
Yeah, I just think it's one of those picks where the Dolphins know that they're entering a pretty substantial rebuild. They sold most of their best players. It looks like Tyreek Hill is already out the door. Waddle's now on the Broncos. But I just think when you get into the scenario where you as a general manager are saying, okay, we're going into full rebuild mode, new QB, new coach, all of this, you tend to get a little bit more aggressive with your picks. You tend to go for the highest ceiling you can get without really looking at the reality of the player. And I just think this is a spot that's more valuable than a typical pick 12. This is a spot that really could propel the Dolphins rebuild faster, and I just don't think Proctor's going to do that. I don't think he has enough going for him to justify, first of all, how heavy he is. I don't think he's fast enough to cover that up, but at the same time, I just don't think he's that powerful of an OT. Like, he's powerful, he's strong, but I just don't think it makes up for his lack of mobility, and I just worry about his production at the next level.
Yeah, I would say there's a much bigger risk factor with him than there is with a lot of the O linemen taken in the first round that you see. Um, that being said, I feel like it's pretty uniform. And even further than that, I think that the Dolphins are in a spot where they're in such a rebuilding phase that it's kind of one of those where do you even start type phases. Um,
Yeah.
and so because of that, it would have been difficult for them to really have made a splash with this draft. I think that they kind of made the most of what they could, but I don't think it's going to be pretty. And my, way too early predictions are that the Broncos, the Dolphins are going to struggle once again. I just don't think that they got the tools that are needed to really pull ahead.
I agree, especially in a tough division.
Mm-hmm.
Their other pick, however, I also didn't like. They took Chris Johnson, the cornerback out of San Diego State, at pick 27. He's 6 foot tall, 193. Last season, had 4 interceptions, 49 tackles, 9 passes defended, and won the Mountain West Conference Defensive Player of the Year. Now, I'll start with the good for Chris Johnson. He is a really sticky man defender. He has great technique. He stays with his man the whole way through the rep. He's able to play well in zone while also containing his man in man coverage. He manages to he has really good ball skills in the air. He's able to defend passes at weird angles. He's a natural ball hawk. Got 4 interceptions. However, this goes back to what we were talking with Avian Terrell. His physicals are not eye-popping. He ran a 4.440, which is good but not elite from a first-round cornerback. He's only 6 foot. He's a little bit heavier than Terrell at 193, but he's a much worse tackler than Terrell. He could not contain runs very well. He was not good at shedding blocks. I just think this is not a round 1 cornerback. I think Chris Johnson's a clear round 2, round 3 guy, a clear cornerback 2. I just don't think that he's going to be a cornerstone of their defense.
Yeah, I think that for me personally, this pick just cemented the idea that Miami is pretty lost right now. Just when you follow up for your second first round pick, you take a guy like Chris Johnson. It almost seemed confusing to me. It seemed like the front office knew that they needed a lot and didn't really know where to start. And honestly, their defense last year was, very poor. Their pass defense, though, was about middle of the road, strangely. So, while they needed a lot of players, and they need them really everywhere, because it's not like their pass defense was doing wonders by any stretch. It just wasn't as bad as some of their other areas.
I actually feel bad to say this. I'm gonna have to correct you there. They actually had the 31st ranked pass defense in the league.
Well, my numbers are totally wrong then. I have them up at like 16th. So,
however, I think that was the overall ranking because they were 18th in pass yards allowed and 22nd in pass touchdowns per game.
There we go.
They were
That's
first in but they were first in completion percentage by a wide margin.
So,
which would drop their overall grade.
Yeah, that makes more sense then. So, thank you, Ethan. But I still think that in terms of this pick, it's just a questionable one, and it's one that I don't know if I fully agree with, and I think makes it look a little confusing.
Especially considering the Caden Proctor pick, it feels like they're two complete polar opposites of the same spectrum. Caden Proctor is a super risky, high upside pick, while Chris Johnson's a very high floor, low ceiling, low risk type of player where you're probably gonna get what you see, which is just a solid cornerback, but not a game-changing one. And I just think when it's going to make me sound hypocritical because I was so critical of the Proctor pick, but it's almost too much in the other direction where it's now you're not taking a swing. Now you're not, because an Avian Terrell or even Gerard McCoy, for all of his medical issues, at least you see the potential for that guy to be a star on your defense. At the very most, I could see Chris Johnson being a great cornerback too. But anyway, we'll have to see about that. Moving on to the final team of this division, and it's a big one because they had 3 first-round picks. It's the New York Jets. I know as a Giants fan,
take it away.
Oh, you want me to? All right.
I think that your analysis of some of their picks is about as good as it can get. So I'm gonna let you take this one, and then I'll add on to it.
So at number 2 overall, they took kind of shockingly. There were some mocks that had him going here, but most people thought that Arvell Reese was going to go at second. They took David Bailey, the edge out of Texas Tech, who's 6'3", 251 pounds, and I just got to say, I love this pick. I think David Bailey is a prototypical star edge. He's not as tall or as heavy as a lot of the guys that we see on the All-Pro list, but man, is he fast. He ran a 4.5 at the combine, and he just has crazy bend. His lateral quickness, his ability to dart in between linemen and shoot the gaps is absurd for someone his size. But at the same time, he's not just all quickness. He's also super strong. Like, he's able to use his long arms to really just push people back, collapse the pocket, get to the QB, and that versatility to rely on power or speed is what makes edges in the NFL like that valuable. The top level guys in the league are able to confuse linemen and confuse offensive coordinators because you don't know what they're going to pull out. And in his lone season at Texas Tech, he had 14.5 sacks, 19.5 tackles for a loss, 3 forced fumbles, 52 tackles, and was an All-American.
Yeah, I mean, you just summed it up right there for you, why he's such a dominant pick for the Jets. The Jets allowed 2,300 yards of rushing last season, almost 2,400.
Ugh.
And this pick is exactly what they need in the moment. So you can look and you can say, yes, Reese might have been a better player for them. You know, thank you very much. Go Giants. But I really think that Bailey is the guy that the Jets needed at the time. And the numbers back him up. And I think that's something that's going to be so important, or that's so important to look at, especially for a guy that's taken at the 2. You need someone that's proven and someone who is going to be dominant no matter what. When you have 14.5 sacks last season and you're already showing how fast and how physical you are, that's just cementing your spot, showing how dominant you can be for a team. Mm-hmm. So I love this pick for the Jets. Yes, I personally thought that Reese was going to go too, but looking over it and really looking into why you might pick a guy like this, I love this pick for the Jets, and I think Bailey is really going to be dominant this coming year. And I think he can be dominant well into the future as well.
I agree. I think that taking Bailey over Reese was the better decision, not because Reese is the worst player, but because what Reese would have to be for the Jets is something that doesn't fit into Arvell Reese's game plan. We already talked about him last week, but the Jets just kind of needed everything, and that's not what the Giants needed. And when you need everything, the best step is to just get a dominant edge rusher. You can really build your defense around that. And while I think Arvell Reese will be a star, his strengths come from his versatility and positionless type of play, and that's not where you really want to start building a defense. That's how you elevate it to a top-level defense. So I think going the more clear route and just taking a dominant edge rusher who can instantly get on the field and produce is probably the best decision for the Jets, who we already talked about their run defense. Let's talk about their pass defense. They had the third worst defense overall, and they were dead last in expected points added per pass and pass touchdowns, while also having 0 interceptions the whole year. And I do believe that passing stats are sometimes a defensive line stat. And adding a player like David Bailey who can really pressure quarterbacks is going to make those passing numbers go down.
Yeah. I think, to that point, the Jets got the perfect pick for the Jets. And that's something, it can sound really hated. That wasn't a diss at the Jets as much as it was you need to make picks that will benefit your team regardless of what it looks like. Mm-hmm. So, we'll talk about it a little bit later. We've talked about before, Mendoza was the right pick for the Raiders, and that's why it made sense. And then we talked about, again, bringing him up, Jeremiah Love was not the right pick for the Cardinals. So I think that Bailey was the right pick for the Jets, and because of that, I really agree with this pick. I'm excited to see what he can do, and I'm excited to see if he can maybe bring the Jets a couple of wins, which we don't see very often. So hopefully he'll
I
bring a
don't know
couple
if
of
anyone
wins
can
over
do
to.
that.
It'll be interesting. We thought
But
Aaron Rodgers could do it, and
yeah,
that
we
didn't work
saw
out too
that.
well.
Well, maybe these next two guys will be able to help them out because again, they had 3 first-round picks.
Mm-hmm.
The next guy that they took at pick 16 was Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon, 6'3", 241 pounds. Last season, he had 560 yards, 8 touchdowns, 51 receptions, and was actually, I'll throw this in there, had a 66.3 run blocking rating, which was much higher than recent tight ends taken in the first round, like Colson Loveland, Brock Bowers, and Tyler Warren. And when we get into the physicals of Kenyon Sadiq, it's what immediately pops out. At the combine, he ran a 4.39 as a 6'3 tight end and had a 43.5-inch vertical. This guy's physicals are absurd. And when you get into watching his actual game, he moves just like a wide receiver. And he's very strong. He's not a unwilling run blocker that you typically see from these type of guys. Look at Kyle Pitts, for one. And he just really, really stands out. You always see him on the field. You see him constantly driving defenders. However, he does have some concerns that we'll get into in a second. I just want to get your thoughts on him before we dive into that.
Yeah, I think similar to Bailey, Sadiq is the perfect pick at the time for the Jets. The Jets were lowest in the league in terms of reception yards last year, and they got
They couldn't
another
do
player
anything last year.
They
Oh my god.
It was unbelievable, but they got a player I think that doesn't just help them with getting more yards, but also, like you said, that physicality. He's going to be dominant. He's going to help all aspects of the game. They were lowest in receiving yards, but it's not like they were too much better with their rushing either. So I really think, granted, they were better with their rushing yards, but they still weren't a top 5 team. Yeah, and because their passing was so abysmal, it just didn't matter. So I think that this is another player who just overall is really going to enhance the team and hopefully bring a lot more intensity to the Jets. It feels like they've been in rebuilding for so long now, and this might be, with 3 first-round picks, this might really be the start where they can get the ball rolling for them in the future.
I think the one problem with Sadiq, which immediately pops out, is 2 things. One, he had a pretty low percentage of the offense, like percentage of the receiving touches at Oregon. He only had 14.7% of a target share. But even worse, he had a 12% drop rate. For all those physical tools, it doesn't really matter if you're constantly dropping the ball, especially for a team like the Jets that needs instant production, which maybe they'll get from the next guy that we're talking about. But there's a saying with tight ends. There's a saying that when you're evaluating them, do you like them for tight end reasons or do you like them for wide receiver reasons? And I think Kenyon Sadiq is very clearly you like them for wide receiver reasons. He might be 6'3", but that's pretty short for a tight end. And while he might be better than some of his peers when it comes to run blocking, he's a smaller guy. And all that speed, all that vertical, I like the pick. I like the player. I just don't think that he's going to be the instant physical specimen that a lot of people are chalking him up to be.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I think I would argue that just because of his pure physicality and just his aggression, you could still see him enhance, the run game for the Jets. He could still play a big role with blocking. So while yes, I think you'll see him a lot more on that receiving side. I don't think that the Jets messed up with this pick. I think that he can still offer a lot of help in terms of blocking, in terms of physicality, in terms of, just moving the chains in general. So I actually disagree with you a little bit on that one. I think that they'll find a lot of use for him. And even though he's not the biggest guy, I think that his aggression and his strength are just good enough so that he can really compete.
And the last of the Jets' 3 first-round picks was at pick 30, Omar Cooper, the wide receiver out of Indiana. 6 foot, 199 pounds. Last season he had 937 yards receiving, 13 touchdowns, 69 receptions, and obviously won a national title.
I mean, yeah, this guy. Look, I'm biased towards the Indiana 2025 football team. I thought that they could do no wrong all year long, but I think that in Omar Cooper, they really just got good experience out of him. And I think that that's another thing that they're going to need. When you have 3 first round picks, it's going to be difficult to really figure out 3 guys that could massively enhance your team. So no, I don't think that Cooper is going to be as dominant and as game changing as the other 2 picks. That being said, I think that you're getting a really solid wide receiver out of him. And I think that you're getting someone that's still reliable. He does a good job of finding open areas. He does a good job of just getting in open space, finding ways to make a play. And that's going to be something that's, it seems minor. You don't think too much of it, but if he can use that to his advantage, then I think that it'll be really important and it can really push the Jets further.
Yeah, he's not a typical first-round X wide receiver, and they didn't need that. They have Garrett Wilson, who was mainly held back by quarterback issues last year. Omar Cooper is really a prototypical slot receiver, except he's on... Actually, that's not even true. I don't really know where to put Omar Cooper because while he plays the slot most of the time in college, a lot of his play was not typical of a slot receiver. He's not one of the faster players. His game was built around a lot of physicality, a lot of getting the ball, making tough contested catches like we saw on that Penn State game, and a lot of over-the-top throws that Mendoza would do in that longer to intermediate area. And only running a 4.41 at the 40 and being on the smaller side, only 6 foot, I just think that he is exactly where he should be, which is the wide receiver 2 next to a dominant tight end who's probably going to get more receiving touches, especially considering his physical attributes, and a proven X receiver like Garrett Wilson. I think that's really going to help maximize Omar Cooper, especially, again, considering how bad this Jets offense is.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's difficult about figuring out the ideal place to put him is because I don't think Indiana had your very stereotypical offense last year. They were far more structured than you'll typically see in offense. And also, Mendoza was getting the ball out so quickly that it didn't really matter what exact position his wide receivers were in because he could just find them all over the field. And so, in that sense, I think it's really hard to judge exactly where to put Cooper. And that's just something the Jets are going to have to work with. But also, I think that I'm making a bold prediction here and saying the Jets aren't going to win the Super Bowl this year. So I think that because of that, they might have some time to figure out, where to put him, how best to use him. Hopefully in the future, the playoffs might be in their chances.
Whoa, don't.
But
don't give
Jets in playoffs, it's kind of like oil and water sometimes. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to move on to the next division now after we had to go through 3 New York Jets picks. The Steelers. So, round 1, pick 21. It was another offensive tackle. It was Max, sorry, I have to pronounce this correctly. Max Ihena Anchor, I think. That's probably wrong. 6'5", 321 pounds. His stats going in off of PFF had a 78.3 pass block rating, a 66.8 run block rating, and an overall of a 72.5. Now, Max here is a little bit of an interesting pick, especially at the offensive tackle position, because he hasn't actually been playing football for that long. And it really shows in his game. While the main reason why he got picked this high is his physicality. Again, really, really long arms, while also running a 4.9140, which is absurd for someone 321 pounds. He's very quick, great laterally, is able to change directions against speed rushers very well. However, because he hasn't been playing that long, he has a lot of balance and power issues. He can get pushed around by guys bull rushing a little bit, and especially in the run game, he kind of looks lost out there sometimes on big run plays. It's going to be interesting. I just think that this is a very high ceiling, low floor pick for the Steelers.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And you can tell in his tapes as well that sometimes it's not that it looks like he doesn't know what he's doing, but he just looks, like you said, off balance, like he's kind of unaware exactly of where his footing should be, and kind of just the finer details. That being said, I think the Steelers are actually a really good organization for him because that's a place where you can go and really develop those tools. I think that while he likely won't be, your number one starter this coming year, he can really develop in the next 2 or 3 years, and you don't need too long to figure out his problems, which I think is the reason why the Steelers took him. He doesn't have any massive problems in terms of, like you said, physicality, strength, size, anything like that. His problems are all more in technique, which is a lot more. Coaches can coach that a lot easier and teach that a lot easier. And so I actually see a really high upside for him because I think that if he takes a year or even just the offseason, gets settled, and really puts his attention into the finer details, the big things are already there for him, and he'll really thrive.
Yeah, especially on this Steelers team that really could use some juice on the offensive line. The last season they allowed 31 sacks, which was 22nd in the league, and they were 26 in rushing yards per game at only 101.1. So while the Steelers have typically built their names in these past couple of years on really grindy offensive line while very shored up defense, this is one of the earlier seasons that we're starting to see that falter, and they really want to get ahead of the curve on that.
Mm-hmm.
And now, moving on to their direct rivals, who also took an offensive lineman. It's the Baltimore Ravens, who at pick 14 took Vega Ione, the guard out of Penn State, who's 6'4", 320 pounds. And I'll just say, my cousins are both Ravens fans out in Maryland, and the entire draft leading up to pick 14, I just kept getting texts, we need to get Vega. We need to get Vega. We need to get Vega. And for good reason. This guy is the prototypical guard. He is everything that you want out of a guard. He is fast. He is physical. He is strong as hell. He is very good at containing in his spot and not letting up any pressure up the middle, which is what you really want out of your guard. And in the run game, even better. He's able to climb to the next level, finishes his blocks. He doesn't let any of the defensive players get even an inch on his running backs. He's able to really contain and push forward, able to pull super well. He's fast. He's agile. He is what you want out of a guard prospect.
Yeah, and the one thing that you didn't mention as well is how well he fits into this Ravens team. The Ravens are a run-heavy team, and my God, they got the right guy for the job. And while they're already highly successful, this is just going to really take them over the top if Vega's everything that the fans and the coaches both think that he can be. I think his ceiling is super high. I think his floor isn't that low either. He's already proved himself,
it's not.
Which is why he's such a good pick, especially at 15th overall. Taking him then is exactly what you want. You're not going to get the star running back or the star QB at 15, but if you can get yourself a star offensive lineman, that is huge at a pick
Mm-hmm.
15, and that's exactly what the Ravens did. They're not going to need to change his play style in any way. He's exactly what the Ravens need. He's shown that he can show up every day and do what needs to be done, and I mean, he just fits in so perfectly.
Mm-hmm. And speaking on fit, so aside from the numerous injuries that the Ravens had last year, one of the clear problems was that they had the worst guard pairing in the entire league. Daniel Falele was ranked 53rd out of all qualified guards in the league, and Andrew Voorhees was 60th. So a lot of pressure. Pretty much that entire interior offensive line was on the hands of Tyler Linderbaum, who's gone now. He's on the Raiders now. So this is going to be an interesting look for the Ravens if they're able to really bounce back from how bad their interior offensive line was last season. If their new additions and Vega can end up replicating what that offensive line was 2 seasons ago, we could see the Ravens right back in contention.
Yeah. I think, they were going to begin faltering if they didn't make a big splash with this draft, and they made the splash that they needed to make. And I don't think there's any reason that the Ravens should be worried about this coming year in terms of their offensive line anymore.
Yeah. Moving on. The Bengals didn't have a pick. They traded it to the Giants. Now moving on to the Browns, who had 2 picks. The first one, believe it or not, it's another offensive lineman. At pick 9, they took Spencer Fano, the offensive tackle out of Utah. So the opposite side of the line from Caleb Lomu, who the Patriots took. This guy's 6'5", 311 pounds, and there's a reason why he was the first lineman taken. He had a pass block rating of 81.5, a run block rating of 79.9, and an overall rating of 83.9. Now, while Utah might be known for producing good linemen, Fano would be one of the best offensive line prospects from most schools. He's super agile. He's so fast. He ran a 4.91 at the 40, which is the same as Max out at the Steelers. But this time, he has all the experience and none of the technique concerns. He's able to really get into his stance, contain on the edge. He's able to work his way up in the run game. He's able to anchor down against bull rushes or use that speed and quickness to protect against faster linemen. There is just one issue in his game, and it's his physicals. Do you know what it is?
I can't think of the immediate physical that popped out when his combine was going through.
What's the one thing that we've been talking about with offensive line?
Are his arms shorter also?
They're very short.
I couldn't
Not
remember
very.
that. Yeah.
They're below average, which maybe this is getting too hyped up considering all the Will Campbell stuff last season. But when it comes to having a star offensive tackle, his arms are not that long. And especially considering that he's 6'5", which is tall, don't get me wrong, but it's not game-changing tall like a Joe Alt at
32 inches,
6'8".
yeah.
Yeah. He might kick into guard. And the second issue, actually, this is not really an issue. The Browns really needed a left tackle because that's the most important position on the offensive line. Last season, they had the 27th run offense at only 97 yards rushing per game and had the 7th most sacks at 51. But they also needed a right tackle. And that's where Fano is more comfortable playing. That's what he played this last season. So, I don't know. And he might even need to kick into guard. It's hard to predict where he's going to play on the O-line.
Yeah, I think it's also worth noting he did play left tackle for one season in Utah, so he does have the experience, kind of. It's been a little while, but that's something that you can get back, especially someone with the talent of Fano. But I think that this pick was a home run for the Browns. They needed an O-lineman, and they got the best one that they could. And for trading for this pick especially, I think that they did exactly what they needed to do. Because I think, you were mentioning his shorter arms. They're 32 1/8 inches. So little bit shorter, but nothing to really gawk at for too long. And I think just the rest of his physicalities are so good that it's not going to matter too much. He's so strong. He's so quick. And he's once again another player that just fits in really nicely with the Browns' offensive scheme. I think he's going to nicely play out. And you were talking a little bit about how you don't know if he's going to be a guard or a left or right tackle. But I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue regardless because he has so much experience at all of these positions. Obviously, guard a little bit less, but left tackle, it's been a year. You can kind of get that back. Right tackle, he's been there for a little while. Yes, guard, you'd have to change it up a little bit, but I still think that he's capable of that. I think his talent shows that he's capable of that, and I think his physicality is more than show he's capable.
Yeah. Anyway, the next pick that the Browns took, a little bit more of an exciting pick because we've had a lot of linemen, and while linemen will absolutely
linemen are exciting.
Let me finish.
Linemen
will win you. They will win you championships, but they're not going to sell jerseys. This guy will sell jerseys.
True.
At pick 24, the Browns took Casey Concepcion, the wide receiver out of Texas A&M. This guy's 5'11", 196 pounds. Last season he had 919 yards, 9 touchdowns on 61 receptions, and was an All-American. And this is one of the most fearless Z receivers I've ever seen. He's got amazing hands. He loves to play over the middle. He loves to use his route running ability to get space. He's really good at playing through contact, whether it's getting hit while he catches or a DB trying to break up the pass. He's very smart. He's a very smart player. He's able to find the soft spots in the zone. And again, great hands, so he's not dropping a lot of passes. And I just want to see, next to Jerry Jeudy and David Njoku, how he's going to fit with these two young quarterbacks out in Cleveland.
Yeah. I mean, I love watching Concepcion play in press when he's going against press defense. He's so fast off the line, which is something that, I don't know, I feel like personally I don't see it as much as in the NFL anymore. And it's kind of almost refreshing. I think that the idea that he can get fast so quickly and so easily, and also the fact that he can really find space. He's not a huge guy, so the ability to find open space is a much bigger deal for him. And the fact that he's able to do it with such ease is going to be a massive asset for him, especially later into his career, I think, if he can continue to use that tool and even develop it even further, then I think that he's going to be incredible for the Browns. But I'm really just excited to watch him because of how fast he is off the line and how much that's going to help the Browns' pace of play pick up a lot and help them get more short yards that, you know, it feels like a couple of teams are shifting towards, and the Browns just aren't really one of them right now. I think that this will help them change their pace to where they're playing quick, short football that's going to be really successful.
Considering that the Browns didn't end up taking a quarterback, it seems like they're going to ride it out with Dylan Gabriel or Shadur Sanders next season. So getting them a really reliable target.
I should mention.
I'm not talking about Deshaun Watson. Getting them a surefire target.
He will be there.
I hope not. Whether or not he's there, doesn't matter. I'm not talking about him.
Fair enough.
The Browns really needed to get a reliable target for their quarterbacks. And especially considering last season, they had the second worst passing yards per game and the second lowest pass touchdowns, both behind the Jets. And I think Casey will really give that extra boost to this passing offense and really just give them more of like a safety net rather than a true star who will able to raise the floor of this passing offense before it takes the next step, that next level.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that he's kind of a fun player. I think he's someone that gives a little bit of energy to the Browns, which will be fun to watch.
The Browns and energy in the same sentence.
I mean, times are changing, man. The Jets have a chance at winning more than 3 football games. The the Browns have energy. I mean, what a time to be alive.
Yeah. Moving on to the next division. Yeah, sure, energy in Cleveland. Next team, the Jacksonville Jaguars did not have a first round pick. The Houston Texans at pick 26, they took Kalen Rutledge, the guard out of Georgia Tech. He's 6'4", 316 pounds. And I think that he was a really solid pick, especially when you're later in the draft. And considering how much has been talked about the Texans' O-line, been super inconsistent. Some weeks they look solid, other weeks they look terrible. So just getting a first-round talent, putting him into the O-line, and just shoring up what was a pretty middle-of-the-pack run offense with a better interior O-line play, and also providing more protection for C.J. Stroud, will allow them to maybe even take that next step that it looked like they were so close to last season.
Yeah. I think Rutledge is going to be one of those players that really develops with time. I think right now, when he plays with the right technique, he's dominant. But sometimes, he falls off a little bit. He's a little off balance, almost like precarious with his body. So I think that when he's fully locked in, when he's playing his best football, he is dominant, which will be interesting to see because that is kind of how, the Texans have played for the most part. Some weeks they're incredible and some weeks they're just not on it as much. But I think that with a rookie doing that, it's going to be a lot easier for the Texans to coach him up, show him the proper techniques time and time again so that he can really become a more reliable offensive guard for them.
Yeah, I think that if they had gone wide receiver here or a defensive player, I think that wouldn't have solved any of the issues. And having a later pick, their options were a little bit lower than other teams. I think they got a solid pick here. I don't think that he's a game-changing, all-pro type of guard, but he's someone that you can rely on to at least elevate what has been a very inconsistent O-line into a little bit more consistency both in the run game and in pass protection.
Yeah, I would fully agree with that.
And then, so the next team in this division, the Colts, did not have a first-round pick because they traded it to the Jets for Sauce Gardner and then immediately started losing games. It was not a good season for them.
I feel like just shouldn't get involved with the Jets, Just
I don't know, man.
Let them do their own thing, all right? It hasn't worked for long enough.
No. The Tennessee Titans, who had 2 first-round picks, and the first one that they had at pick 4, they took, kind of shockingly, they took Carnell Tate, the wide receiver out of Ohio State, 6'2", 192, and so a lot of mock drafts, and when I say a lot of mock drafts, most mock drafts had them taking Jeremiah Love here, and I know how much you love Jeremiah Love. Why do you think they take Carnell Tate here instead of him?
I gotta be honest. I think they weren't expecting the Cardinals to take Jeremiah Love. I think that they kind of panicked and they wanted a splash, and I don't think they made the splash that they were looking for. I just don't think Tate is right for the Titans. I see the talent in him. It's very impressive. He's really good, especially at contested catches. But I just don't see the need for him, really, because, Calvin Ridley still has another year in Tennessee. I don't see the point of getting a wide receiver, especially at pick 4. There's so much that the Titans could have done with this pick, and I just don't think they made the most of it. And I do attribute it to the fact that I don't think anyone expected the Cardinals to draft Jeremiah Love at 3.
That's true.
I think that with the new 8-minute clock instead of 10-minute one, the Titans panicked, and they picked their first wide receiver off the board, which is not where they should have gone. And that's what they ended up with. And while I do think Tate will be a solid wide receiver, don't get me wrong, I don't think he's what the Titans need right now.
I think I agree with you there. I think if it came down to it, I think one question would be, do you think that the Cardinals would be better off if they took Carnell Tate over Jeremiah Love? Or let's look at the three players that were really mocked here. The Cardinals, you saw a lot of people saying that they were either going to get David Bailey or Arvell Reese if either of them fell after the Jets. You saw pretty much every mock draft had Jeremiah Love going to the Titans, and then down, like you see kind of Pitter off. It really seemed like in the moment there was kind of a reaction to the Cardinals taking Jeremiah Love. Like you mentioned, it almost looked panicky, but I think that maybe is not giving enough credit to Carnell Tate. He is a very good route runner. He, especially as a vertical threat, he was huge for Ohio State in their offense, especially alongside a player that we'll talk about in 1 second. But he just, I think he will be a good target for Cam Ward. I just don't know if he's pick 4 worthy, especially considering like that his co-star at wide receiver, the sophomore Jeremiah Smith, was the wide receiver 1 for Ohio State and was, I'd say, significantly better.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the Titans would have found more success if they had gone the defensive route here. I think they should have taken Reese at 4, despite it definitely having screwed over the Giants if it would have happened, which would not have made me happy. But I think, you were talking about Jets, Cardinals, Titans. All 3 of those teams can use defensive players. They just can. And I think the Jets made the absolute most of it with Bailey. We said it last week or last episode. I feel like the Cardinals kind of threw away their pick for one of the best players in the draft that they just didn't really need. And I think the Titans are kind of a mix of that. They can use Tate, don't get me wrong. And Tate, again, will be solid for them. And he's going to be solid for anyone. He's a very skilled wide receiver. But the Titans don't really need that right now. They could have really needed some defensive players. And I don't know. I just don't like this pick, honestly.
Yeah. Again, I think it's kind of crazy to take, no matter how talented he is, a wide receiver 2 at 4. I think if you're looking for upside, I think even despite the injury concerns, I think Tyson has more a higher ceiling than Tate. I think Tate's just, there's no one part of Carnell Tate's game that I look at and I go, that is an elite wide receiver trait. He's a good route runner. He's not pick 4 level good. He has good speed. He's not pick 4 level speed. He's physical. He's not pick 4 type physical. He exudes what you'd expect of a wide receiver 2 because that's what he was pretty much the entire time at Ohio State.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I hate to helmet scout, but Ohio State wide receivers have been pretty successful recently, so you never know.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I think he'll be solid. I'm still against this pick. I got to be so honest. I don't like this pick.
Too. I think they really freaked out after seeing Jeremiah Love go.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
The next team that we're going to talk about is moving on to the AFC West, the Denver Broncos, who did not have a first-round pick. Then the Los Angeles Chargers. I am so excited to talk about this pick because at pick sorry, I lost it. At
22.
pick 22, thank you. They took the edge out of Miami, Akeem Mesidor, 6'3", 259 pounds. Last season, he did great. He had 12 and a half sacks, 17 and a half tackles for a loss, and 63 tackles, 4 forced fumbles on that national championship losing team. He was perfect on the other side.
Ethan, I'm gonna stop you right there, man. I have to stop you right there.
These are such great numbers. Is there something?
You said he's 6'3", 259 pounds. You forgot one pretty important detail.
What could
this
be
guy.
so important about this guy? He seems like
You
he's
know,
the total package.
he is the total package. Don't get me wrong.
He
It's
was
super
so good on the
impressive.
other side of Ruben Bain. He was so good. He had more sacks than Ruben Bain. This guy, it's
You know,
crazy that this guy fell, right?
give the guy all the credit in the world. I have a little bit of concern about the fact that he's older than his draft pick, which was 22. The guy is 25 years old, which, again, the numbers support him, okay? The numbers support him. He is a
He's 25.
very solid edge. But if you really think about it, this is a 25-year-old that was playing with 19-year-olds. So, again,
Yeah.
the numbers support him. He is a very solid edge. He made it all the way to the national championship. You cannot take that away from him. And I do agree with this pick. I do actually think that he could be super good in the NFL. But this guy is 25 years old already.
When he's done with his rookie contract, he's going to be nearing 30.
Yeah.
Dude, and
Yeah.
especially
as an edge.
As an edge rusher, oh my god. This is I mean, I think the play here for the Chargers is you have a clear QB1, your QB of the future. You seem so close. They did have a good season. Despite how it ended in the playoffs, they had 11 wins. They were a solid team despite all the holes on their roster, and especially with a great defensive staff that they have. They just kind of want instant impact. They don't really care about the long term. And I just don't know if that's really what you should do as a first-round pick. I feel like a first-round pick can really – it doesn't matter if it's first or 32nd. It really can turn a franchise around and be a franchise cornerstone. And he's already at the age where most edge rushers are getting their second contract. I just think that the long-term impact is just not going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, I think where I find some trouble with it is knowing that Justin Herbert has now been in the NFL since he was drafted in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Mesidor has been in college for as long as Justin Herbert has been in the NFL.
Ooh. It's not good.
His stats support him.
It's really not
and
good.
At 25, you're in your prime, okay? So don't get me wrong. This guy is in his prime right now. But he has never stepped onto an NFL field before. Consider
he's going to probably take a year to adjust to the NFL. By that point, he's 26. You get maybe 4 years of him on his rookie deal, and then after he gets to his second contract, it doesn't matter how good he is. His second contract's starting when he's in his 30s.
Well, and even bigger than that, when you look at his stats, he had a dominant 2025 season. He didn't have that dominant of a college career before that. He had a very solid one, but he did not have a first-round draft pick type of college career until last year. Last year, no question, this guy was insane. But when it takes you 5 years to adapt to college, you're 25 and you're going into the NFL for the first time, and I just have some questions.
I'm going to get into a different problem with this pick beyond his age. So last season, by a lot of metrics, the Chargers had the sixth best defense. They were 6 in EPA per play, so expected points added per play. They were one of the best in terms of EPA per rush and EPA per pass, and at the same time, they were second in the league in sacks allowed to Justin Herbert. They allowed 60 sacks. They needed offensive line. We've been talking about offensive linemen all day, and the team that needed an alignment, arguably the most to get them to a Super Bowl contention, took an edge rusher. I get that Khalil Mack is getting old, but this guy, Akeem Mesidor, is already
So is
old.
he. So is he.
I don't know.
I think that when you've had as successful a season as the Chargers, which is super successful but not all the way, it's super
Mhm.
difficult to really make the right pick. Um, and I don't think they succeeded in this. I
Yeah,
just
I
don't.
agree.
I think I could be eating my words in a year. He could come into the NFL and immediately just be dominant, but I don't really see that happening. And I see him becoming
But here's the
dominant.
thing. Here's the thing. If he's not dominant right away, then
Right,
that's
then he's
immediately the value of the pick goes down because he's
yeah.
like we mentioned, he's already so old. Edge
If you're
rushers that come into the
27 when
league,
you're entering your prime, yeah,
exactly. That's not good. That's not where you should be.
yeah,
Anyway,
we're in agreement
next,
there.
yeah, yeah. I think the next pick, the Kansas City Chiefs took at they took at pick number 6 after trading up. They took Mansour Delane, the cornerback out of LSU, who's 6 foot, 187 pounds. I wanna get your take before we start it out.
Yeah, I actually like this pick a lot. I think he's super aggressive. Um, I think that he has good contact, but there are definitely a couple of problems with it. He misses a decent amount of tackles, which for
Hmm.
being as aggressive as he is, I just think that's a high risk, high reward type situation. Um, and I feel like to take him as high as they did, um, it's a little questionable when you're getting a cornerback that misses that many tackles.
Yeah,
And it can be a little faulty every now and then. I really like it because of how aggressive he is. I love watching cornerbacks that just attack the ball. But he can get stuck on blocks sometimes, and that can be a big issue for him. He can miss tackles, that can be an issue for him. So he has a few too many problems to where he should. I don't think he should have been taken at 6. That
hmm,
being said, I definitely think he's a first round talent. I definitely think the Chiefs can, if they utilize him properly, then he can be really good. And if he works on missing tackles, then he can become a dominant cornerback in this league, and especially
yeah.
one for Kansas City that they need.
So we're talking about the tackling and the run blocking and all of that. The main thing and the reason why he got drafted number 6 and why I had him as the cornerback 1 in this draft is he is by far and away the best coverage
Mm-hmm.
cornerback in this draft. When it comes to man coverage, there is pretty much no one better in this draft class. He sticks to them like glue. He's always there. His recovery speed is absurd. He's so fast. He's so quick. He reads hips and reads the QB's eyes so well. His ability to make pass breakups or interceptions is excellent. There's a reason they traded up to take this guy. I think while in the same way that I was critical of Chris Johnson getting taken in the first round, I'm the opposite when it comes to Mansour Delane. This is a cornerback 1. This is a guy that you can build your secondary around. This is a guy that you just stick him on an island and you just go, Mansour, just cover that side, we'll do everything else. And but the main issue that I have with that, I think, is they already kind of had a guy who did that, and then they traded him to the Rams. It's it's strange to me when Trent McDuffie got traded to the Rams for a first round pick. They it was kind of clear it was okay. They were trying to clear up cap space. They didn't want to pay him, and they were entering a little bit of a rebuild when it came to this defense. While Patrick Mahomes got better, but then they used their pick that was really early in the draft to get another cornerback. And I get that there's like the money situation. I get that that's probably where their head was at. It just seems strange to me to trade away an all pro cornerback only to draft what you hope would be an all pro cornerback.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if there's too much that I can add to that. You kind of summed it up perfectly. They kind of traded away, gold to get more gold. Um,
Yeah.
I guess he's younger, so that could benefit them, but also he's not proven yet, so maybe not. It's an interesting pick. But I don't know. I really like him as a pick. I just love how aggressive he is in the secondary. I think it's fantastic to watch, and I think that he's so good at reading a QB, that it'll be fun to watch him in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm for this pick because they technically didn't have a cornerback, but they
True.
didn't have a cornerback because they got this pick. So
They,
they're really just taking a gamble here, and it's kind of a gamble that I can respect.
yeah.
You know, I can appreciate this one,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm excited to see what he can do in the future.
So the last two picks, I wanted to save them for last because I feel like we can kind of do them together. I like to call them the run stuffing boys. It's Peter Woods went to Kansas City at pick 29. It was the pick that they got from the Rams, the D tackle out of Clemson, and and then two picks after at 31, Keldrick Falk, the edge rusher out of, I shouldn't even call him a rusher, out of Auburn, got taken by Tennessee. And the reason why I want to group them together is because while being defensive linemen, they don't have neither of them has much pass rushing upside. They're both entirely there for run stuffing. And for Peter Woods, that's a pretty big plus. He's a D tackle. He's big. Hate to helmet watch, but he plays for Clemson. They're known for their D tackles. But Keldrick Falk is a little bit more interesting considering that he's an edge rusher.
Yeah, I think that the Peter Woods pick makes much more sense. Also, just with Chris Jones getting a little bit
Mm-hmm.
older, um, I think Peter Woods plugs the holes, and he's going to be someone that you can kind of count on to get the job done. So
Yeah.
that pick, I would say, is much more straightforward, reasonable. You know, doing it right, keep going. Yeah, this Falk pick is a little bit more questionable because also, the Titans in need of some defense. I don't know if this was the guy for them, because
Yeah.
he's kind of, we were looking at players like David Bailey who really can do it all in a way, and that's why they're so necessary and so good for a team that's just in need of defense. To be honest, there's no like
Mm-hmm.
specific position the Jets just needed defense. Um, I think the Titans are kind of in the same boat a little bit, and I think Falk is a little bit more cloudy in terms of where he specializes. And I don't know if there's
Yeah.
anywhere where he does specialize in particular.
So the reason why we're so down on Keldrick Falk, despite the fact that his physicals look great, he's
Mm-hmm.
6'5", 276, plays very strong, and let's just start it out. Amazing run defender. He
Yes.
is impossible
Yes.
to move on the edge. He like if they try to run an outside zone to his side at only 20 years old, this guy is stuffing every run. He sheds tackles so easily. There is only like the main issue with him, and the reason why it's pretty questionable that he goes to such a defensive like needy team like Tennessee is he's an edge rusher who can't rush the quarterback. Last season, in his junior year at Auburn, he had 2 sacks. That's it.
Yeah. I would say
Like,
the problem is it almost feels like he should be more as like a D end or D tackle, but he doesn't really have the size for it. Um,
mhm.
and so he's kind of just in this gray area
Yeah, he's
where,
a tweener.
yeah, like he's. I feel like you said it earlier. He's not really an edge rusher. He's more just like a defensive edge.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I feel like Tennessee can either tell him to go throw on 20 more pounds and turn him into like a D end, or they can kind of deal with the idea that they have an edge guy that isn't going to be doing a lot of rushing. So,
It's it's just he's a confusing player. Like
yeah.
this is such a strange comp. You don't usually see this type of guy that like a run stuffing edge rusher who with limited pass rushing upside. Like again, for I don't want to like not give him enough attention. Like Peter Woods as a defensive tackle, very very great. He's able to contain. He doesn't get moved by double teams. He plays at a really good pad level. Like, but his lack of pass rushing upside doesn't really matter because he's a 300-pound 6'2" defensive tackle. That's typically what you expect of that type of guy. You are paying him and you are drafting him this high to be a run stuffer. when you draft a first-round edge rusher, you want them to get at the quarterback. You want them to get that type of value. And I don't know if Keldrick Folk will ever do that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I fully agree with this pick, but I'm also not totally against this pick. His run presence is so good that it's really hard to be anti. But I don't know. I just feel like it's hard to really give him a specific position and point to it and say this is where he excels. And this is where, like, you know, his position says he should excel and he does excel. Less of like, you know, he says he's an edge and he does not excel in sacks. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. It'll be interesting.
But overall, I gotta say this was one of the most exciting first rounds I've watched in a while. There were so many
We're missing
turns.
one more play that I know at least one listener is waiting out for. And you know, we did do an entire episode on him, so I feel like we should at least give him a shout out, even if we're not gonna fully go into it. We have skipped talking about the number one pick in the draft.
It's true.
And you know, I got a question during the week after our last episode came out that said, you know, how do you think the Raiders did? And I responded, and I'll say my response out loud. It would have been really difficult for the Raiders to mess this one up because with the first pick, they took Fernando Mendoza, QB out of Indiana, Heisman winner, national champion. What's up?
Yep, Indiana. Yep, that's where he ended it. But where did he start?
Sorry, out of Berkeley. You know, proud Berkeley alum.
That's Cal, two-star player. We were the one Power 14 that offered him. Graduate from Haas.
I mean,
don't forget
you guys really are the ones that did it. It's thanks to y'all that Fernando Mendoza is now a Raider. I mean,
for better or for worse.
What a moment, yeah. No, I feel like, you know, we don't need to add too much to him. We spent an hour and a half talking about him before, but I'm excited to see what that guy can do. I mean, he was the easy pick number one. I'm glad that the Raiders didn't mess this one up because if they did, it would have been a generational mistake.
So funny if they drafted.
It would have been hilarious. It would have been absolutely hilarious. But no, I'm excited to see what he can do. He's super talented, and I'm excited to see if that talent translates to the NFL because I know that there's a chance that you know it doesn't, and that's a scary concept. But it worked so well in college that it'll be exciting.
We have a whole episode talking about Fernando Mendoza, so we don't need to dive into it anymore. But I've had a lot of fun both watching and talking about this first round. I think, again, it was one of the more interesting that we've seen in years, especially with picks like Jeremiah Love at 3. Man, it's just been an absolute blast talking about it. And I'm really excited to dive in and like watch these players as they develop.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting for sure. Yeah, definitely some good picks. Definitely some questionable destinations for some of them. So it'll be cool to see how they work in with some of these offenses.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for listening. If you've made it this far, please make sure to follow us on all platforms. Make sure to leave a rating, leave a comment, leave your thoughts, whatever it is. We appreciate all the support, and we'll catch you next week.